let's just spend some time on the Trump cases. We talked to them ad nauseum. I don't want to spend the whole day on them because we've got some other good and interesting cases. But let's spend a minute on the fact that he's about to sit for a criminal trial on Monday. Jury selection is going to begin in this New York trial court, criminal court on Monday. They are limiting to some extent what they can ask the jurors. Like they can't ask them who they voted for. I just think that's kind of interesting. I don't know. You can make a good argument in this case that they should have to say who they voted for, or like they should have to tell you if they voted for Trump or Biden. If they voted for, Biden, it's the same race happening again, Phil. So you could make a pretty good argument. They've got a bias against Trump and probably we're looking more for people who didn't vote or for Trump voters who could sit favorably and, I should say, without favor for either side. What do you make of it?
Yeah, they ought to know what the political inclinations are for the jurors when you're putting on trial the presumptive nominee for the presidency for the Republican Party. It's just common sense. Why the judge wouldn't allow the parties to get into that is just lunacy. There's no reason that this trial really should be taking place in Manhattan. If it's going to be a trial at all, there needs to be a change of venue to someplace that's a little bit maybe more neutral or someplace that can possibly be fair. There's no way that he can get a fair trial there. But remember, this case should be at most some type of state misdemeanor bookkeeping violation that had a 2-year statute of limitations. But what is Bragg doing? He is basically lying to the public by telling them this is some kind of federal election case that is some kind of there's no victim here. There's no fraud. At most, it's a bookkeeping error. It's one that federal election officials who actually have the ability to prosecute these things looked at and said, there's no case, we're not going to bring it. But yet we have another instance of lawfare by a partisan, hack, biased local prosecutor in Manhattan who lets everybody go for everything. Apparently, you can smash people over the head in the subways. You can commit armed robberies. You can murder people. You're going to get let go if you just were some kind of a sympathetic, at least to him, defendant. But if you make a bookkeeping error or do something in the way that you keep your books, which is harmless, by the way, there's no victim there. And if Alvin Bragg doesn't like it, he wants to put you on trial and try to throw you in prison on a case that ought to have been barred by the statute of limitations. This is pathetic. This is almost as bad, and maybe even worse than what we see here in Atlanta with Fonnie Willis.
And Viva, he's going to have to sit there. Unlike the civil case, in a criminal case, the defendant must be present. So he's losing 2 months from the campaign trail.
Megyn, it does not need to be explained how over the top it is. The gag order is election interference in its purest form. But, a bookkeeping mistake or whatever you want to call it, and they'll argue, no, it's election interference because he paid off a porn star for an alleged affair. This is what I believe it was John Edwards had a very similar thing, and I thought that this was resolved in law. Hillary Clinton financed, and I'm not playing the whataboutism, I'm just saying this is less bad than what has been done in the past. Hillary Clinton financed the Steele dossier that was at the root of that bogus Russiagate story. They financed it and then they lied about it. And she gets an $8,000 fine and the DNC gets $100 and some odd $1,000 fine for concealing the fact that they financed that opposition research. Slap on the wrist, minimal fine. They turn this into a 37 or however many charge indictment because every month they charge for the entry in the books, the writing of the check, because this is what his lawyer did at the time, Michael Cohen. I made a tweet when I was eating dinner alone last night and I was laughing to myself. I was like, look at all the players in all of these persecutions. It's a joke. It's a comedy. You got a porn star, a convicted perjurer, a convicted extortionist, corrupt prosecutors. It's like we have a joke of a play, and yet somehow, because people like it politically, they're going along with it. This trial is election interference. I predicted it wasn't going to start on the 15th. It looks like I'm going to be wrong, but I'm still holding my breath. It's wild. It's a joke. They're making mountains out of molehills, and it's political persecution and election interference of the highest order.
Just to reiterate for our audience, and we've gone over this in the past, but so it was a bookkeeping, misstatement, which would have, as Phil points out, would have been a misdemeanor on which the statute of limitations was 2 years. That case was dead. That claim was over. It was too late to bring it. The way he resurrected it by saying it was under New York law, if your bookkeeping error is to cover up an underlying felony, then you've committed a felony. And the underlying crime that they claim Trump committed was an illegal campaign donation. Right. An illegal campaign donation to his own to his own campaign, in essence, by paying off Stormy Daniels in order to cover up this affair so that people wouldn't know about it in advance of the 2016 election. Well, we've had election officials on this show, campaign finance officials, who have pointed out that in order to qualify as a campaign contribution of any kind, or like campaign finance, it has to be a payment that could only ever be used for a campaign donation. It can't be something that has dual purpose. Like, I bought a suit and I would both wear it at the debates, but I would also wear it in my real life. No, that's not going to qualify. And it usually comes up because somebody tries to write off the suit purchase as like, oh, that was for my campaign, so I'm just going to use campaign funds to purchase it. And these officials would say, no, you can't do that. It has to be solely for the campaign. And that's the proper legal window through which to adjudge this payment that Trump made to Stormy Daniels through his lawyer, Michael Cohen. Men have been paying off women to shut up from the beginning of time about affairs, all right? You could go back to Alexander Hamilton. And that doesn't make a campaign violation just because it happened to be done right before his election. I'm sure Trump didn't want Stormy Daniels telling this to the world because it's embarrassing, to Melania because she was his wife, all of these reasons. Anyway, all of this gets lost, and we're going to see the jury next week, maybe. I mean, I think jury selection is going to take a while. Go ahead, Viva. I can see you want to get in.
You heard Avenatti gave an interview from prison. Not that he should be trusted now, but seems to be suggesting or implying that it was actually perhaps Stormy Daniels shaking down Trump, knowing that an election was coming, that she allegedly approached the Trump campaign and not vice versa. So it's unclear as to which way this alleged extortion scheme is even going. Set aside the fact that this is going to be a state felony charge over what arguably is a federal election crime. I understand that's only going to come up on appeal, but this is quite clearly the weaponization of the judicial process of the highest order.
Oh, and just by the way, the feds declined to bring that underlining charge. The feds looked at the campaign finance allegation and said, there's no there, we're not doing that. So only Alvin Bragg, this political hack, as you point out, in New York, saw this and said, I can stitch it together. I can make it happen. On the subject of Avenatti, so he goes on with Ari Melber on MSNBC the other night. Avenatti, oh my God. I mean, one of my proudest moments as a journalist is when I will tell you, and you can go back and check the record on this, I never fell for his bullshit. I was never enamored by this guy. The one time I had access to him, I grilled him like a 4th of July hot dog. It was unpleasant for him, and the record will speak for itself. But he's back from prison, where he's been sentenced, I think, 22 years for the multiple frauds he committed against his clients, including Stormy Daniels. He's in jail right now because her publisher gave her an $800,000 book advance, and he stole $300,000 of it and forged her name. I mean, this is a proven liar. But what he had to say about Michael Cohen, who's going to be a star witness against Donald Trump in this case, was pretty interesting, coming from Michael Avenatti. Take a listen.
Every case needs to have one or two primary witnesses who tell the story. From my perspective, I surmise that the DA is going to use potentially Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels for that purpose. And I think that has the potential to be a disaster. Michael Cohen is and I've never been a fan of Michael for various reasons. He's a serial liar. He's shown himself to be incapable of telling the truth.
Okay, so correct,
true,
true, but right. Hello, pot, meet kettle. Yeah. It's amazing, Phil, to hear. Like, I really object to his serial dishonesty.
Yeah, it's weird because I find myself in the surreal position of agreeing with everything that Michael Avenatti just said. It's bizarre. Maybe I'm going to get invited to lunch with Fonnie Willis this week. Things are so strange in my world right now. But look, no. I mean, you've got a convicted felon, okay, that is going to be the star witness and or perhaps, the porn star who, refuses to pay any kind of judgments against her. And it's just, it's going to become a circus. I mean, anything that involves, Donald Trump has a tendency to draw every camera on the planet. and every microphone on the planet. Just, it's there, and it's all going to be superheated. It's like in this giant pressure cooker, and it's going to just be explosive. We're going to be in the situation, unfortunately, of dissecting the truth or the lack of truth of every word that comes out of these witnesses' mouth. We're going to obviously have to dissect the strategy of the prosecutor, who, by the way, is not going to want anybody to tell him, because it's true. Non-disclosure agreements are in fact legal. This is part of what people do, whether they're running for president or not. This is part of what people do to settle these kinds of things on a regular basis all across America. So it's not even a crime. And look, you need look no further than the Fonnie Willis, Nathan Wade situation to understand, like, even she did not want her relationship to get out, and only when it was uncovered did she finally have to fess up to it. So it's people just don't want these things to be on the front pages, and so they do non-disclosure. Even Fani Willis has done non-disclosure agreements with her staff. This is what people do when they don't want somebody to talk. It's a matter of contract. It's legal. It's legal to hire a lawyer to create these things, and whether or not there's a bookkeeping error that happens to conflict with bookkeeping norms is pretty much irrelevant. But he's trying to bootstrap this misdemeanor and to make it a federal felony prosecuted in the Manhattan State Court. It's preposterous.
And it matters. Here's why it matters. Even though people, I think, generally know this is kind of bullshit, that still you've got 1/3 of Republicans and 50% of independents saying it might change their vote if Donald Trump is a convicted felon by the time we get to November. And I realize most of us are like, do they really mean it? This is kind of a BS case. Really, they mean it on like this? This would make you feel that way? We don't know. What if they do mean it? What if they do mean it? Because Alvin Bragg is likely to get a conviction in this case. And that really could change the course of history, especially to your point, Viva, because he's basically gagged. He's gagged from publicly attacking Michael Cohen, who's got free reign on him, from Stormy Daniels, who's got free reign on him, from the judge's daughter, who's got free reign on him. And we could go on. He can attack the judge. He can attack the DA. But this really does look like election interference, and Trump is gagged, and you've got that 50% and 1/3 saying convicted felon could change my vote.
Well, Megyn, would they be more likely to vote for him or less likely? I'm not trying to be...
No, they're saying less. They're saying less.
Okay, fine.
I mean, 2/3 of the Republican Party has said, no, we don't care. But he can't win with that. He needs all Republicans, virtually all, and he needs a hefty amount of independents to win this race.
If he gets convicted,
he's gonna win anyway. I think he can win anyway. And when he does win, even if he, let's say you go through this trial, and let's say there's a conviction on some or all, and look, it's in Manhattan. I think the deck is severely stacked against him. So let's assume, for the sake of this discussion, that he's going to lose and he's going to be convicted of one or more of these counts. But then he wins the election. Okay, what do you do then? Is he going to be in jail, or is he going to be out on some kind of a post-trial appeal bond?
Not going to jail for this one.
The convictions are not final until the appeals are final. He's not really.
He's not going to jail on this one, right? And the appeal will play out. It'll play out. Go ahead, Viva.
I'll just highlight one thing. I think people might have also forgotten about this. So you got your porn star versus your convicted perjurer. Stormy Daniels came out on how many occasions to reaffirm that there was never any relationship, and now the argument is that she lied about lying that there was no relationship, and people forgot about this. And then you get Michael Cohen, who's saying that Trump knew exactly what was going on, when Michael Cohen is alleged to have taken this money as a retainer and then done good lawyering by paying off the porn star. And it's not clear if there was a relationship, other relationships. It's it is going to be comedic. The only problem is they don't need to show the jury, ask the jury who they're going to vote for. Everybody, statistically, it's like being in D.C., 90 some odd percent, maybe it's a little less in New York, with certainty. So he's going to get convicted in as much. Well, he'll get convicted, Trump, in as much as Sussman got acquitted in D.C. despite being dead to rights on the evidence. It's all politics. I think everybody's seeing that, and I'll take the other step. I say, if he gets convicted, it's only going to help him. I don't think it's going to hurt him.
I agree with Viva.
Well, listen, but what I'm saying, guys, is what I'm saying is this is what the polls show us. And I, too, am inclined to say, I'm not sure I believe that. I'm not sure I believe it on any of the cases. But I could see us getting closer when we're talking about the federal prosecutions, not that BS down in Atlanta. But if
people have to see this?
But what if we're wrong? But Phil, what if we're wrong? Phil, what if we're wrong? What if we're wrong? Like we've written off polls before, only to be embarrassed. So what if these people mean what they say? And we get to election day, these independents, 50%, say, you know what, I couldn't do it. He's a convicted felon. Then this case will have meant everything.
Yeah, well, if we're wrong, then Alvin Bragg has, and this judge who puts the muzzle on Donald Trump has single-handedly changed the course of world history, would give us presumably another 4 more years of open borders and relentless crime on the streets and all the social chaos and the division that we're seeing now.
Yes.
And this is why lawfare is morally wrong. I mean, you're shooting fish in a barrel to prosecute Donald Trump in Manhattan. I mean, you cannot provide a worse venue for that man to try to get a fair trial. All the things that Viva points out about the credibility of the witnesses and the cast, those would all be reasonable doubt in a reasonable world, in a reasonable venue. But we don't have a reasonable venue. We are in Manhattan. We're going to have a bunch of lunatics on this jury that hate Donald Trump. And that, look, they elected Bragg, they elected Letitia James. These are the people that vote for people who promise to get Trump. We're gonna get Trump if you vote for us. So now they voted for these people. These people are in office. These people are now fulfilling the campaign promises to go out and get Trump. And they're
you can see the campaign ad.
The actual voters.
Promises made, promises delivered. We promise to get them. We're getting them. Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe 10 grand or 10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay or you're on a fixed income, they can help finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000 for a private, free consultation or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.